I think we'll get started. Yeah, first off, thank you for those that are attending today. Of course, today's presentation is going to be on Equinox Corporate Plus and basically the simplifying IP management through a system built on Salesforce. So we'll get to explore a little bit of our history in building Equinox Corporate Plus, kind of the benefits of that partnership we have with Salesforce, and we'll talk a little generally about challenge IP managers are facing today and things that we're doing to try to address it. And to get started, I'll try to do my best to answer questions. So you will have questions. You should see in the app at the top right, there's a little kind of chat bubble that you can ask any questions at any time. I will do my best to read those. They will definitely be answered at minimum after, but we will have a Q&A section at the end. Before I jump right into kind of the agenda for today, I'll just really quickly introduce myself. So, and we'll see if I can get there we go. All right, so real quickly, just to introduce myself, my name is Eric Moran. I work as the director of the subject matter expert team here at Questel. So anybody who's giving product presentations and things like that, especially around our IP management systems, I kind of work with that group. And since this is a short kind of presentation today, I think within GoToWebinar, there's a nice timer at the top right that just makes me nervous as we go through this. So we'll try to get through all the content. My marketing team has already told me remove some slides, make it a little bit more efficient. But we'll have, a lot of different things to discuss today. So we have about 45 minutes together. I've been working at Questel for about 12 years, so I'm super interested in pretty much anything IP, but especially the IP management systems as we become a more kind of holistic partner for our clients and those in the industry. So hopefully this will be something that will give you a sense of what we're able to do, a little bit about kind of that partnership we have with Salesforce and the system that we built. And with that, I'm going to get right into kind of the agenda for what we'll be talking about. So first thing I'm going to do is talk about a brief history of IP and IP management specifically, and kind of the transition of how IP management has changed, and especially in recent years. We'll talk about the new landscape of IP management, so kind of moving beyond just the simple IP, but really understanding some of the other challenges and how things are dealt with today. We'll introduce EC Plus, so we're going to have some recordings, so some videos where you'll get to see the system in action. Nothing super crazy, but just to give everybody a flavor of what's available. And then once we kind of get through that, we're going to move into just some other use cases. So we'll take a look on how it can kind of help you break silos. So I don't want to give away too much, but how it's really a system that's more holistic than just an IP management system, but really a strategy system and a way of you integrating with your entire organization. And then we'll talk about taking this data and driving decisions and automation through these kind of platforms. So nowadays everything's automated. Everything is being automated by AI or automated through technology, and so we'll get to see some of that. And then very lastly, for those of you that are looking to bring on these kind of software, to really talk about the I think the unsung hero of the importance that as cool it is to have this kind of technology, it's also important that to understand that there's a human aspect of all of this. So we'll get into it. So let me start with my brief introduction of modern IP management and really a brief history of patents in general. And this is I always find this kind of a funny slide to talk about, but whenever you think of IP, I always like to go back and think of like, when was the first time patents even came about? There's a little bit of debate online. You can say maybe ancient Greece or whatever it may be, but the first granted patent, as we see it, is in 1421 by Filippo Brunelleschi, who I'm probably saying incorrect, and I think he built a technology to move marble across the desert or whatever it may have been. But as you can see, IP started a long time ago, and it wasn't really until the 1800s that the modern day patent office came to be. And with the creation of the modern day patent and trademark office, so let me not forget, the trademarks as well, there wasn't really a need for IP management. I mean, you didn't have a lot. You had an invention. It was great. You protected it. But as time goes on, before, no need for it. But with the Industrial Revolution and kind of the creation of steam engines and textiles and you name it, there was a huge surge in IP, and people had to find ways to manage it. And back then, everything was pen and paper. It was these ledgers and logbooks and binders. And it really wasn't until the mid 1900s or 1950 to 1990s where companies like GE and IBM actually built their own internal patent teams, and law firms began providing those kind of services. So as these filings grew and its portfolios grew, the technology had to change. And so where before it was filing cabinets and so forth, it wasn't until about the 1990s that everything went online. So spreadsheets, some of the first IP management systems came about, but really it was always a back office function. And it wasn't until very recently that these systems and companies realized that, hey, IP is more than just those that are managing the deadlines. It really had to become a strategic tool. And that role, and that change from being that kind of quote unquote legal back office to being really strategic partner for different divisions. Depending on the company, maybe you can say it happened before, but it's really kind of blown up in recent days. And I like to just give a general sense of the kind of teams that IP and patents and trademarks are really affecting, whether it's the R&D and innovation teams, who are harvesting inventions or running their freedom to operate, and you're trying to align your projects with the IP that you're creating, or you're launching products and you need to know what protection you have on your brands and make sure others aren't using it. What are competitors doing? Obviously, being in sales, you can kind of just see from here and the importance of finance in relation to all of that. As more filings take place, the more strategic you need to be with your IP, and obviously budgets will begin to explode. So I always like to show this just to say everybody has to deal with IP in one way or another, and every different division within an organization is using different systems. And so being able to have a filing cabinet with all your IP that nobody has any access to is just not something that can work anymore. It really is something that has totally changed how it's being done. And so with that change, there's new challenges, and those challenges, as IP becomes more and more important, and with kind of the complexities of IP, we have to think of why is it becoming so difficult? Why can't we continue using the spreadsheets or the filing cabinets or whatever it may be? So a couple things just in recent years, we say there's been a data explosion, and really there has. I mean, we're averaging, I think in 2023 we had about 3.55 million patent applications, so up about 3% from 2022, averaging about 3 million filings a year, a lot over in Asia. So again, that brings global complexity. Companies are no longer kind of bound by jurisdictions. They need to understand the rules and regulations beyond their local country. There's obviously the challenges of AI. So inventions nowadays are being generated through AI tools, and how do we deal with the protection on that? You have things that are maybe not IP, but NFTs and trade secrets are becoming more important because there's fear that there can be reverse engineering. And so all of that kind of stuff has to, take place even with the systems that users are, that companies are using to think about it. And then lastly is that collaborative R&D. You're seeing more and more open innovation, more cross-border R&D, shared IP models. I think Tesla was doing opening to total open innovation where they were just letting anybody use their IP, and you'll hear about patent pools and things like that. And so there's just been a huge change in how people are addressing these challenges. And the reality is that a lot of the systems that exist now are failing to be able to meet those challenges. So traditional systems, of course, and I won't say everyone's using a filing cabinet or maybe everything is externally managed, whatever it may be. But a lot of systems, the challenges are a lot of manual work. I mean, people are still doing a lot of manual workflows. I'll give you an example of a manual workflow to just try to meet the deadlines, assuming you're doing that work in-house. The data silos, so as you saw from a few slides before, people have their data managed in all kinds of different systems. So as I go through this, you're going to see a little bit of how EC Plus is trying to meet some of those requirements. So there will be some live view of the tool. Missed deadlines. So especially as we become more global, the rules get more complex. Being able to make sure that you're not missing anything, a real challenge, especially with systems that maybe aren't supported with somebody who's maintaining those rule sets or whatever it may be. And then of course unscalable systems. You've been using the same workflows for 10 years. You're not sure what you can do with it. Those are the kind of things that a traditional IP management systems will fail. And even for us, as we learn the importance of being able to meet these challenges. And when we talk about manual workflows, I always like to show this because, even to this day, so, 2025 or, whatever, the June 25th or whatever it may be, this is really kind of the day in the life of a lot of people using some of the more, traditional systems that exist. And it's, monitoring their emails. So they're receiving their, so whether you're a law firm and you're monitoring PTO notifications or from your clients or vice versa, you're a client who's receiving those reporting emails from your law firm, just getting that data, downloading it, docketing the dates, making sure reminders are set up and that your attorneys are kind of made aware of what's going on. Not having audit trails because you're using a spreadsheet or whatever it may be, even for these large portfolios, which always surprises me. But with that increasing volume of IP, these kind of actions could take, we say 5 to 15 minutes per entry. And we're talking 5 hours daily of just data entry, just simply getting the data clean in your system. And really, just as things grow, this needs to be automated. And so basically is how do we take something that, takes 5 to 15, which doesn't seem that extreme, but, with the amount of volume coming in, this has to be down to 5 to 15 seconds. So we'll get to see some of that. We'll also talk about the challenge of data silos. So this is just data being in different places, whether it's your annuity data being managed by a service vendor, your outside counsel having, the true kind of picture of your portfolio because they're doing the day in, day out, where internally, you may have different data such as your financial data or R&D projects, whatever it may be. And this, again, just duplication of work. So the cost increase of having multiple systems, people doing things in different places, the lack of visibility to make decisions. So, what are they even working on? What's going on? Delays, and then, of course, inconsistent data. So the idea, of course, is quite simple. It's just having these systems that are unscalable. They're not meeting it. They're monolithic. All kinds of performance bottlenecks, not having the automation or that integration, and just the cost of being able to customize it, even if you do have a system. And so, when we looked at this, at least early on, and basically what I'm going to transition to is the kind of the history of where Questel said, hey, we want to jump into this space, and we understood these challenges, but how do we meet those challenges? And really that was kind of where we said, okay, we got to decide it. And so really it was a vision of ours to be able to be that end-to-end provider. So even when I started 12 years ago, before we were selling data, it was a patent search database and some services work. And really we wanted to be that end-to-end integrated IP. And of course it was a journey. So I always like to show people the journey. We have different solutions. So, the challenges of firm versus a corporate are different. There could be jurisdictional differences. So we have TOPAM, which is our Japanese tool. Right now, we service over 1,000 clients around the world. But Equinox Corporate Pluses are kind of the latest of what we offer. And really, it was a long kind of story of getting there. And so when I again started in 2012. In 2015, we made an acquisition of a company which used to be called Gym 32. 32 sides of a diamond, it protected the company's jewels or whatever it may be. And then we said 360. Asset was born in 2016, which was our first kind of foray into IP management. But we've always been looking to, find the best and greatest of what exists. And of course, if you look in recent years, we've acquired a big, we say service provider. So this is package renewals and annuities. They had their Novum IP platform, which was already built on Salesforce. So it's kind of our first introduction to, ooh, this is an interesting kind of technology. What is it all about? What can we do with it? 2022, we purchased a company called Equinox. So all part of the Questel kind of grouping. And Equinox was a leading provider in the UK of IP management systems at the time, mainly for law firms, but obviously being that we service everybody, we've kind of created the corporate version of that. And they really, we learned so much from them. They had the rule sets. They had a lot of really interesting things, really taught us a lot. And it wasn't until 2023 that we decided to go into partnership with Salesforce. And we'll talk a little bit about what is Salesforce, because I don't think everybody is super familiar with it. But this is really where this came about, and it's been super interesting and great to see where we've come. So we know the title mentioned Salesforce. I realize some of you may already know, but not everybody knows what Salesforce is. So I wanted to give a quick introduction to this partnership and talk a little bit about, what is it? Why did we choose it? What do they bring? What value does it bring? And then we'll get into, just seeing kind of how the system looks within the platform that we've built, EC+. So Salesforce, if anybody is in sales on the call, I imagine most people are in IP, but this is the world's leading customer relationship management technology. So everybody who works in our sales department uses Salesforce to track the relationship. What calls have we done? What follow-up? What notes is there? What deals and things are going on. Salesforce is one of the services over 150,000 customers worldwide. So it's a well-known, established technology. They're also some of the leading kind of players in the AI space. So, being able to take these data management tools and integrate AI for, improving the experience of these tools. And with that, we said, wow, this tool is great. And what does it allow us to do? And if you remember going back to the challenges, integrating with these other departments and their technologies, having that legal and security compliance where you just cannot avoid that in IP. So, and just the ease of customizations, not having something monolithic, not having something that is going to be extreme to change and edit and manage. And because of this has allowed them to be the number one CRM, and basically we said, hey, we want to model ourselves after something that we know works, obviously with a kind of the flair of, how does this work with IP? So of course, when we talk about, how does it work with IP, the first is if, you're trying to build those integrations with other tools, I want to be able to have discussions on my IP, but I want to do it in Teams as opposed to, on Chatter or maybe your IP management system doesn't even have an internal chat function. Is basically saying, okay, we can make that integration. Almost looks like I always think of the cell phone. You go to your application store, you download an app, and you can basically take that and implement it right into the system. Of course, also having those APIs and that ability of pulling and pushing data from different systems as well just made it really simple for us to scale. So it's not just this system that it's by itself. It's no longer back office. It's saying, hey, look, we understand you work in finance, you're using a different system, or hey, internally, this is the technologies that we use. It's allowing them to basically take these pre-built apps and integrate it within the tool. It's also the security. So when we talk about security, it's not just having the security requirements, SOC 2, FedRAMP, ISO 27001. But it's also being able to have the functions that we can kind of show within the tool. We talked about open innovation. You're working with collaborators. You have inventors that you want to be able to provide data for them, but not everything. And the system had that already built in. It basically allows for that access control, that ability of limiting the objects or the data that a user can see or read or edit. And so with that, it gave us really a lot that ability to say, hey, look, we can meet your very strict requirements for what you're trying to do. And we said, okay, how does that apply to basically to the IP industry and the IP management industry specifically? And we were able to do that. And then lastly is the automation. It's basically saying, hey, look, I have approval processes. We never renew a patent without 5 people saying yes. We never file a patent without 5 people saying yes or no. We have all kinds of different decisions or, data entry that we're not trying to do, feedback that we need to collect. And all of this is very simple to do within, we say the no code workflows, but basically saying, okay, what is it you're trying to accomplish? Let's do that. Let's build it in. So just a lot of native things within the system that they were able to provide just as an architecture. And then really what we were able to bring was a few things. So number one is the expertise. So again, Questel, we've been doing this work since about 1978. The IP management since 2006 was Equinox, so the company we acquired. So of course we've been trying to do it. They have that experience as well. And we've always had the data. So we've been providing, patent data, trademark data, all of that kind of stuff for searchers around the world for years, and since the beginning of my career at least. And this just made sense to be able to integrate that data directly into the workflows that are, that users would have. Having this global implementation team, so we'll talk a little bit later about the importance of people. So having the technology is great, but then if you're working with a company trying to install it, if you don't have the people or the data experts or the project managers, being now that we are 2,000 person company, we have number one patent filer in the world, 40 years of IP renewals, in-house agents, and just expertise around. We just thought, hey, this makes sense. We needed the technology, we had the expertise and the people and the service apparatus to help, and it was a match made in heaven, more or less. So we're going to get into it. This just gives you a kind of an overview of the different solutions that we offer. So really, it's to our proprietary solution that we offer to most corporates and law firms. But for those very large organizations, a lot of different complex needs and requirements, workflows, things like that, we tend to move towards the EC Plus and build it on Salesforce. And it gives us so much different things that we can do. So we talk about, I already mentioned the workflows and automation and third-party integrations. We already talked about the centralized services that we're able to provide, and some of these portals you'll get to see. And so what I wanted to do is just kind of share the system with you guys. So I wanted to get into, just giving you kind of a flavor of what it's about. So I know it's maybe I could have started with the presentation of the technology itself, but I wanted to, just kind of introduce kind of the history of what we're trying to do and what, what it's able to offer. And so I wanted to give just this, quick video. There shouldn't be any sound, so I'll kind of talk over it. But as you can see, users have everything in one place. There are things to approve, their tasks that they have for the day, the different objects at the top, and different dashboards. So if you're making strategy decisions on, from what the inventors have, you may be managing your services through the system, so we can provide for you your renewals. You can filter this on, maybe you have a specific jurisdiction you're interested in. So these dashboards, of course, are set up to make your life easy. Internal chat and collaboration functions, so users can, share documents, get feedback from others. What should we do? How should we do it? Create these committees where they can kind of foster and collaborate together with different people within the organization. All communications can come directly into the system. So of course you can work from Outlook, but just being able to take PTO notifications and those emails from counsel, whatever it may be, have it within your kind of inbox and your system just makes life easy. You have your, any deadlines and tasks just available for the user, assuming you want to manage it, or even your counsel could provide that info. And we'll talk a little bit about the collaboration, and I'll go into that video in a moment. But of course, all the data within the system can be basically dashboarded. It's just how do we create productivity based off the data that's been added. And this can be productivity for the in-house docketing admin. What tasks do we have? what's the workload based off different users within the organization, prosecution statistics, to compare the value of your or kind of the productivity of different outside counsel. We already mentioned the renewals before, but the idea is that all of your IP is within the system. All of this IP is also managed for you. So you'll see this update suggestions for the PTO. So any kind of data that we can feed, links to the public websites, any task or deadlines related to the particular case itself, any documents associated with the case itself, categorized, reviewed and statuses of the review. And then, as I mentioned, the PTO comparison. So anything that's different within the kind of the bibliographic data versus what you have in the system. And this is beyond in any relationship. So of course it's, you have contracts related to it, prior art, general matters. You might be managing your trademarks within the solution. So, being able to have just your trademarks available. Again, the same kind of PTO suggestions for your trademarks and links to the public offices. The ability of generating templates within the tool. So, maybe a demo that would be given for, an hour or something like that. This is kind of breezing through, but just showing you the different things that it can automate, the creation of forms, your cease and desist letters, whatever it is that you're trying to get done. It just makes life easy for the user to be able to do all of that and just have it all in one place. So I wanted to give that teaser just to kind of show you kind of what it looks and feels like. We'll move to the next slide because, of course, the IP management systems and having those, it's more than just the data for the IP team itself. It's also a system that's supposed to unify the work from your different departments. So, I mentioned finance and whatever, but we'll keep it simple in this case where you have your inventors or let's say brand creators, those that are submitting ideas or trademarks or they're coming up with the new innovation for your organization. How can they submit their inventions? How can you review those inventions? Where does the IP team, how can they, improve that kind of back and forth, relationship with them? How can outside counsel get involved? So how can they collaborate more efficiently within the tool? And so I wanted to show the kind of the next aspect of this is the kind of the collaboration functions. And generally, there's multiple ways. It's either data flows from API feeds and things like that. But in this case, we'll do it through some of the portals. So let me show this tool. I'm going to show kind of the strategy dashboard. The idea is just, and again, these dashboards can be configured as you wish, but this is one that I like to show where, when a user comes in, it just shows instantly what they're responsible for, filing decisions or invention reviews. And then being able to have these portals. So I being a very lonely soul and working on the system alone, just wanted to show you me jumping into the inventor portal. So I, of course, not being the inventor, but this would be the inventor's view where they have access to what's important for them, just their invention submissions, maybe rewards that they're provided, any questions or things that they've been asked, or just being able to have that live chat within the system itself. The ability of just being able to submit an invention, so having that just simplification of the work that they do, and knowing that these forms are going to come directly to the IP team within the system. So again, these forms configured, basically we're always trying to convince people to put your forms online so you can run, analytics and reports and things like that, and just simplify the life of the inventor, allowing them to chat with you directly and securely within the system. So, they might upload a document or in this case, just ask a question to you. This just allows for that seamless, not having to do everything through emails, even though you can, as you saw before. And we'll see a little bit of how the system can kind of collect and automate the emails that are captured. But basically now as the in-house user, you can see any new submission that comes in. User would say, oh, here's the new submission. You'll see the workflows or kind of any kind of stage gates you want to set up, the conversations that I'm having with myself, nice and sadly, being able to move this to new stages or set questions and prompts. So kind of automating, questions can be asked. And I made it very rudimentary for, for what we're doing, but changing the status to validation, this moving to a new user's, on their dashboard to say, hey, you have new responsibilities. If you're, one of the validators that have been set up within the system itself, being able to collect reviews. So we'll move this to the review stage, and this might already be a predefined, group within your organization. But let's say I want to assign different reviewers to collect feedback about, in this case, an invention. This allows me from within the system to say, hey, look, I'm going to invite myself and Lucia to answer a questionnaire. This questionnaire, of course, can be sent via email with whatever questions you want to ask or answer. And just having that ability to automate that process and be able to do it within the system and capture that data. And giving the inventors that ability to see, where is my invention? I submitted it. What stage is it in? Oh, I see that the team is reviewing it. When was the last time somebody looked at it? Who's looking at it? So just being able to provide that access, kind of a secure access for the inventors on things that they do, having all that information for you. And then, of course, getting your outside counsel involved, because outside counsel may need to talk to the inventors, but you may not want them to have the full portfolio. You may want to just let them know what they're responsible for doing. So anything that's in kind of the drafting stage, or any filing requests that you've provided for them, but just having that full access to, just to see the data as it goes through. They have their kind of limited view on whatever fields you provide for them. They can upload their drafts, or again, ask the same questions that you saw before. So just being able to take documents, get that feedback from you within the tool. And here I'll upload the file directly into the system just to show you how it's done. And that just basically shows how they can really work in real time. And so this gives the that really powerful way of collaborating within these tools. You'll see I'm uploading the draft. I'll move this a little bit further. I realize I uploaded not a draft document, but then that draft, making sure to notify the different users who can go in, make their own edits to the data, and just having everything in one place. So using dashboards as a way of simplifying the work that you're doing as data comes in and moves, and how you can collaborate within the tool. So it's just a really nice way to be able to do that kind of work. And so the very last little short video, so I know we're coming close to the end of this. I see there are a few questions. I'm going to answer a few of the questions, and then I'm going to, then I'll show the last video, and then we'll have another short Q&A. Do inventors need a license to see the status of their inventions? They do need an access to what we call a community portal. We do also, so there is a need for what they need to do. So the answer is yes. We also do have something called Equinox Invention, which is a platform that's proprietary, especially for some where we actually can integrate with our own tool that we've built for kind of the invention submission. But we do like that community portal as an option to provide that direct access to it. There is a question about what sort of AI does it have and what can it do? So right now, the AI, the way we deal with AI is we actually have an integration with Qthena. So really what we try to do is take any, let's say, case, move it into Qthena, which is our tool for, let's say, AI office action response drafting, where you throw it into a Qthena project, pulls the prior art, pulls the file wrapper data. Users can use prompts and actually chat with the system to answer office action. So a lot of the AI we deal with is more for the communication with documents. It's basically taking documents and talking to it, and some other kind of AI functions as well on some of the things that you'll see in a moment. There's a comparison to a competitor tool. So the competitor tools, there are other systems on Salesforce beyond us. So there's a reason that a lot of players have chosen kind of the infrastructure of Salesforce for what it does. Then it comes down to some of the nuances of just, the teams behind it, some of the data that we're able to provide, the Qthena AI module for some of that kind of work. But I'll give a more maybe deep kind of information for you to know about that. does they also manage grants and annuity payments? So yes, you can do annuity payments, EP validations, things like that through our services team. So being able to have that direct access to our teams to send orders and things like that through the platform. And I wanted to show one last thing, and then we'll talk a little bit about the teams and try to get you guys out of here at the 45-minute mark. I have a feeling I'll go a little bit over, but this is a very short video. But the idea, we talked about the automation. So when data is entered and being able to set triggers, create records, assign tasks automatically, reducing the manual effort. So we talked about the strategic dashboards. I'm a big fan of having the dashboard kind of tell me what's going on because data is flowing in and out of the system and giving that visibility. But I wanted to basically show how that can work in practice. So again, there's multiple ways of receiving correspondence or whatever it may be. So here I'm creating a reporting letter, but this may be, just e-notifications or whatever it is. This has a document attached to it that I'm going to send into the system. It tells me, your counsel might send you something that you've seen very similar to this, and the system needs to be able to capture it. So actually, the nice thing about PC Plus is that any communication could just be sent directly into the system. The system is smart enough to identify, based on that the case being put into the email somewhere that, hey, it needs to link to this particular case. It needs to move the documents onto the case itself. So, okay, there's been an office action, recognizing what the document is, recognizing that there's deadlines associated with that document, being able to just do that with things that come in. You can even set up approvals. So actually, before just creating tasks on your page, to have a way of saying, hey, yes, I approve to create this preset, or even you'll see in the system you can add that manually. When we say manually, just to to categorize it, but just being able to do that automation, and this can be everything from you have prior art, you have to update your IDS, and you need to warn your U.S. paralegal that, hey, there's a reference that's been found in a European search report. A lot of kind of cross matter citations and notifications. So just a really cool way to kind of work with the data in that sense. So before that, I saw one more question. Can the tool also be used for connecting the business with trademark use or renewal? So yes, I did mention proof of use, also brand proposal submission. So if you have a trademark ideas and you want to be able to kind of go through a validation stage gate for that, that kind of collaboration with the external agents to have your agents upload the proof of use within the system, or whatever required documents for renewal, is 100% able to do that. And then I see one more, but I can't really see the full question. Any large adopt Equinox as their sole IPMS? Yes, there has been 100%. All right, and so let me finish the last piece on the more than just the technology, because these kind of projects, and I already see some mentions of competitor products that are using the same kind of architecture, the technology. The one thing that we've learned, especially in the IP management space, is that there's a lot more to these kind of systems than just the technology itself. Because at the end of the day, whatever technologies you can bring and the value of those technologies, at the end of the day, this system is something that it gets configured, it gets customized. You want to automate something that no other company wants to automate. And the most important thing is the team and the people involved with this. So, here at Questel, we sell a patent search tool. Not that support isn't important for it, but when I think an IP management system and the way that we've kind of experienced it, it's truly a project. It really is, being able to have that collaboration with our clients, being able to find out where can we save you money so that you can, convince your stakeholders internally, where can we improve processes that may have not been automated in the past. And so the most important thing is that we're not just enabling people with the technologies to do it, but that we have processes and people. And this is something that, we basically are experiencing and have been doing. But as the portfolios get larger and larger, the complexities get larger and larger. And so for every team or basically any project that we take on, there's a lot of people that get involved. And so, this is the solution engineer that's capturing those technical requirements, putting in the forms in the system or the document templates and things that they would need, having those that can configure the system and layouts and dashboards to the use that our clients have. Migrating data. So you may have systems that have different architecture, one object systems versus multi-object, as I showed you in this. You may have data that's just poor legacy data. It may be inaccurate or it's not linked to the PTOs because of number formatting. So being able to take that data, move it over and make it work. And then of course, writing those specifications and aligning with your goals. So, as I say, as nice as its technology is and everything that it's able to do, it's being able to have these multiple groups work together. And most importantly, and I had to take this slide out because I know I can talk a lot and really get into it, but it's just making sure that we understand and work in collaboration with the clients. So it's been something that, we've launched, and, it's a lot more work than I think we even imagined, but I think for us it's been super exciting work, and probably the most important piece of it. So as nice as the system is, understand moving these is no simple challenge, but definitely doable challenge. And for us, we've basically put everything into really this aspect of it, because it's only as good as the teams and that collaboration and that understanding that we can gather from clients. So simplifying, how does it simplify? You saw that collaboration. How do we improve the strategy between, what our system's doing and what others are doing? Making sure that different departments can have access and limited access. Salesforce has some AI functions that are coming. So obviously Questel, we are always leveraging, OpenAI, Gemini, you name it, into the different tools. So if you're not familiar with some of those, we're happy to go through how we've been integrating it. Salesforce has its own AI, so wherever we can take advantage of that, or our partnerships with Qthena and things like that, to just find ways of summarize this document, automate this process, and then of course that service integration. These systems are designed to be one click. I always talk to anybody. It's in the past everything was email or it was written in a letter, it was faxed over, whatever it may be. Those days are totally gone now. Everything is pretty much, the expectation is I click to pay, I click to get a report, I click to understand what's going on. So, and being able to get real people on the back end as opposed to just the technology. So I think that's more or less the end of it, with about 30 seconds to spare. But I'll see if there's any more questions from you guys. I think I answered most, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, no more questions. So I know it's a lot. It's one of those things where it's 45 minutes of one person. I had a lot of content I wanted to go through. I wanted to show some stuff live, but do keep in mind you can reach out. Happy to show you guys the tool at any time. Happy to talk about projects, our successes, our failures, whatever it is that's interesting to you. But just to give you guys that full scope of what we're doing. So again, we're always trying to bring something new. Obviously, I didn't want to make this a full AI-focused presentation because I know how much is going on, but it's absolutely vital to these kind of systems as well. So we'll be happy to discuss that as well and show you things that we're doing. I don't see any other questions. I know the time is up, so I just want to really quickly thank you everybody for attending, taking the time out of your day to see. Please send me an email, find me on LinkedIn, whatever it is that you want to do. And we'll be following up with some of the answers written out so that everybody can take advantage of that. So perfect. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day and take care.